It's time for the State of the Union. Each conference, the President gives a review of the year. But it's almost unfathomable that we haven't met as a body since June of 2019. Never would we have dreamed that it would be so long or so complicated to bring us to this date. Before we list our successes, it would be wrong to not acknowledge the challenges we have faced since then. And the story of how we have gotten here isn't so easy. But ultimately, it's a story of triumph and success. For those that don't know, I was elected to this seat in the June of 2019 during conference. In the fall of that year, the board attended the Oregon AFL-CIO convention. It was a historic moment for OSEA as we successfully took the Oregon AFL-CIO AFT VP Executive Committee seat. It was the first time we've held the seat with the AFL-CIO State Fed. It had been previously held by the much smaller AFT Oregon since our affiliation. Later, that will be important to this story. In January, we held our 2020 Leadership Summit. At that point, we were both mourning the Janus decision and celebrating the passage of House Bill 2016. Organizing membership drives is where our focus was at that time. Now, all of that seems so very long ago, but it's also an important part of this discussion. As early as late November, we had gotten small snippets of news about a virus in China. In January, several of our board members were asked to start practicing Zoom meetings with friends and family members. By February 28th, they were all asked to start seriously working on learning to master it. Our staff had already started getting geared up to be able to work from home. I asked for the virus to be placed on the Oregon AFL-CIO March 6th Executive Committee agenda. It was March 6th, weeks before our state shut down, that I started having discussions with our labor affiliates to head off what was coming. When it was presented to the Executive Committee, the room exploded. Following discussions made the virus a high priority for labor in Oregon. Then more conversations came with follow-up meetings with both Graham and Jess. Calls were then made back and forth for clarification. Why a shutdown would have had adverse effects on our members. And introductions were made with Bob Tackett, with our staff, to key committee members. And when our state did shut down, our lives were forever changed. Yet OSEA on the state level was ready. The governor's office had been made aware of the precarious situation for our members. Considerations were made due to the legislative rules regarding education staff inability to apply for unemployment insurance, as well as the state school funding allocations that had already been made to school districts for the year. There were several issues that are key to our being here today. First, the recognition of our inability to get unemployment meant a statewide shutdown would have greater ramifications on our members than other working populations. Because those that would seek unemployment insurance risk breaching their district's contracts and losing seniority, their insurance, and retirements purse. Being a priority for the Oregon AFL-CIO created a strong advocate and allies for our members. Also worth mentioning is that we pointed out that in rural Oregon, most school districts are the largest community employer. That losing their economic income, many communities would be economically decimated. And financially, that if we are to serve our students, we were going to need to retain our staff. You and I both know that school boards across the state would have cut classified staff loose. So when the governor's office announced that school employees would be retained, there was a reason, because they had listened. And that's where the story that you know comes in. because not only were we able to assist in student coverages during the highest risks, but looking ahead, we were able to retain classified staff from around the state for our inevitable restart. Let's be perfectly clear. Due to Janus and the pandemic, our union, like others, would have been decimated, subjected to school board pressures and loss of personnel. Wow. Please remember that we have not only suffered due to the pandemic, but the loss to Janus. So although our numbers are low, we have a story of triumph, of a group of people that due to their union membership were able to have the ability to save our jobs and yes, much more. During this conference, you are going to hear the treasurer's report, the proposed budget. You have zone reports and committee reports. Yet, they are a result of what has occurred to our way of life, our chapters, our members, and our families, beating unbelievable odds. Our union has so much to be grateful for because we literally saved our jobs, our organization, and the economies of many of our communities. We have retained our homes and lifestyles. Hard, yes. It sucks. Perfect? Absolutely not. But it's worth celebrating that we can still do our jobs and that we are still here. Something else has occurred during this pandemic. OSEA staff and members have used their voices stronger than ever before. Through Zoom and unlimited amount of meetings, we have entered into partnerships that have given us a seat at the table like never before. Yes, we've always known and engaged with legislators, agencies, the governor's office, but now it's on steroids. And we don't always agree. Most of the time we don't. But we're able to talk and to discuss issues because we're at the table. We've had unprecedented MOUs. Each time a decision comes out, our staff and members have had to fight for language and resolutions that affect the quality of our lives and workplace safety. But we've been there. We know that we have lost coworkers and friends. We've paid the price in education, community, the economy, and nationally people have suffered. We have thought that just 1 month earlier, that Janus was our greatest threat. Yet here we are. I don't want to lament the challenges we have, the ones that have come upon us, but it's important to acknowledge them in order to respect the struggles of each of you. Let's never forget that we have seen fire and communities decimated. We have felt the smoke in our own lungs and the sorrow in our bones for our losses, knowing full well that we have just come out of a summer that, for many, it meant 2 months with no paycheck. We know that literally thousands of Oregonians had to be evacuated and suffered new hardships. In the middle of a pandemic that brought unknowns and isolation to our very doors, our staff has continued to struggle to address those ever-changing mandates and MOUs. Many times the ink wasn't even dry when a new one was issued. People displaced and worried. What about our jobs? What about our families? What about getting sick? Is it really a flu? How am I going to work if I'm sick? So much stress on our districts, our chapters, our members, and our families. Our state struggled to respond and have answers, and yes, they've screwed up. But our members, for the most part, were safe from being displaced. Immediately, we held meetings, some weekly with governor's staff, legislators, congressional leaders, agencies, labor leaders, and affiliates, and each other. You ever see one of those children's ball pits where the kids dive in and they're gone? It's like throwing those balls all up in the air with everyone trying to juggle them all at once. never knowing when one was going to hit the ground, yet trying to catch as many as you can, standing beside everyone else doing the same thing. Members pulling together, staff working feverishly, our board did double time. They testified and listened to in. We pushed everything we could get out to our members, town halls, webinars, listening sessions, Zoom calls, people trying to work from home, calls from the car. Now, it's too much for me to review every little thing. It's simply enough to say that we are here today and that this is a testament to the tenacity of our work. We are here to celebrate our recovery. That our kids, even in the hardest hit communities, have an effective school to go back to. That we have retained classified staff to welcome them. That most of our own homes and co-workers are okay. That our chapters have pulled together, even under some of the most challenging circumstances. I get asked too frequently, what value is our union to our members, to our schools, and to our communities? Well, we are here today because of our union, because we know how to pull together. So where are we? Where are we going to be after COVID? We're going to be strong, vibrant. We're going to be a union. That's what we are. That's where we're going to be, because we're OSEA, and we can celebrate that.